Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about hiring considerations. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, hi Frederick, assuming that it's for the same role, would you rather hire a candidate who is okay at programming but seems to be sociable? Parentheses, able to work well in a team, or would you prefer a candidate who is really good at programming but doesn't seem as sociable but acknowledges it and says that they are working on it? Well, this is it's too narrow of a question for me to be able to give you basically the way that I think about hiring people with different types of profiles. I'm just gonna kind of sidestep that question because it's too narrow. Because basically all you're giving me is say that I have to pick between a person who has a lot of social skills, but basically a lot of heart, but not so good at programming, and someone who's really good at programming but not so sociable, but quote unquote working on it. I don't know anybody who is not quote unquote working on becoming a better person if you ask them about it. It's not about how usually when I talk to a candidate or basically any human being, I always try to determine, like, because this is just based on my experience, guys. There is a very big difference between what a person says they're doing and what they're actually doing. And I'm one of those people who I will listen and try to really understand and hear you out, but I also use your actions as a reference to how truthful you are with yourself. Because in my experience, people can truly believe that they are making all the right moves, but their actions speak differently, and that's not because they're bad people. It's because they are unaware of that there's a misalignment between what they're saying, or like they interpret these words in a different way, and what's actually happening. And that is an extreme example of this is a person who is severely overweight but does truly believe that they're eating healthy when they're only eating 2 Big Macs instead of one. It's the same sort of that's the sort of delusion that you can see in a lot of people. Everybody does it to a certain extent, but anywho. And so the way that I think about the hiring like a sociable person versus a person who is like better at the coding, it very much depends on what type of composition I already have within the team and what type of profile I am looking for. So I'll just give you kind of brief rundown of the sort of considerations that I make and have made for most of the companies that I've been hiring people for. So the first and foremost thing to consider is, am I hiring a consultant or am I hiring someone who's going to be like an in-house developer? The reason why that is very important is hopefully going to become obvious to you when I explain a little bit about my thinking about like profiles and how you structure things in order to make sure that you avoid some of the common pitfalls for people who are hiring software developers and composing teams and like all this. Well, I'm not saying tech lead level stuff, but it's like the middle management type of stuff, the stuff that we're like literally just one level above the people who are doing the coding. So you got your first like notch up on the picking order or ladder or whatever it's called, right? So this stuff is where it starts to get important to understand the difference between a person you want to invest in and a person who's just there to do a job. And a consultant, almost by default, you have to treat a consultant as someone who's just there to do a job. Now, with my finger raised, I say this is something that I don't really like, which I truly do dislike this, and I've worked for a lot of companies at this point now who has this attitude towards consultants that, oh, if you are a consultant, you are scum. And you're only here for the money, you're only here for this and that. You have a lot of prejudices against the consultant. And I always come back to the same thing. Yes, these things could be true, but look at the person. That's the thing that matters. Who is this person? Because I have personally worked with consultants who gave their blood for the company they were working for, like the client. They were they're consultants for other reasons than, I want the maximum amount of money with the least amount of effort, or like these sorts of typical stereotypical things that people say. But the thing that is important when you deal with the consultant is that you have to consider that this person is costing your company, it can be up to twice and sometimes 3 times the cost of an in-house developer. And they also have that, they are not the masters of their own fate. They can be pulled away for their own reasons, or for like their consultancy might just say, hey, we have this other very much more lucrative project, we're going to switch you, we're going to move you. And an idiot will think that, oh, that's not a problem, we'll just get another consultant. That's not how it works. You have a lot of domain knowledge in that person, and that's the other factor which I'm going to touch on as well. The domain knowledge. So when I'm hiring a consultant, I treat a consultant as what I call an engine. An engine is, even if it's a very sociable person, and we're going to touch on that as well, I cannot afford usually to treat a consultant as more than an engine type of developer. And a basic, to create a very simple analogy, an engine type of developer is a person who's basically just there to produce. And that's why I go at the personal level when I do in-house development hires and stuff like that. I usually am very much more focused on the social aspect. Once again, it depends on team composition. We're going to talk about it. Don't you worry. But the exception to that rule is when I'm dealing with a consultant, because there's always going to be a base level requirement on social skills, and because that's the thing I want you to be very understanding of, that when I say I care mostly about raw skill when I deal with consultants, that doesn't mean that this person can be a complete douchebag. We're talking that you are a human being. You have to understand that basic interactions and sociable skills is like, it's not a nice to have, it's a hard damned requirement. You can't spit people in the face when you come into work. That's like so just let go of those extremes, right? But the focus is that this person has to be very good, because they're costing us enormous amounts of money. Now, while I'm investing in such a person, I will actually never hire, on average, I will never hire a junior consultant. Ever. And there are a few political reasons why that is. Because one thing is, of course, that the consultancies, they have this very nice thing that they do where, and I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's not like they're being nefarious or anything like that. But they will give you a free junior if you hire the senior for, it's going to be cheaper or something like that. And what they're actually doing is that they're trying to figure out a way to train their junior consultants so that they actually are worth something at the expense, of course, of the company. And this is something that a lot of companies don't really understand when you're dealing with junior consultants and juniors overall. This is what I've told you before. This is extra important when you're dealing with junior consultants. You have to have a mature project. If you don't have a mature project, you're actually going to slow yourself down. So there's no point in investing in a junior consultant. On average, I mean, they can of course be converted into in-house hire, but in my opinion, it's usually better to just focus on the in-house hires. If you're hiring juniors, hire people who are willing to commit to your company. And that brings us to the other part, the social skills. Now, if I'm starting from scratch when I'm hiring a software team, my main focus always is going to be to hire the most sociable people that I can find. They need to be able to do the job, but I focus more on soft skills than anything else. The reason is very simple, because it's always easier to hire an engine when you have the office culture. It's a lot harder to do the reverse, because if you don't have a healthy community of software developers in your company, these are people who are usually there to actually make a difference. They're there to help out. They're very open and genuine, and they really want what's best for the company. Once you have those people in place, they will create an environment where an engine who is mostly just there to just churn out code, you can trust that that person is now in an environment where you don't have to micromanage people. You don't have to worry that, if you hire, because that's the story, right? That's usually how it goes, especially in the larger companies. They hire a bunch of consultants who go into their own little silo, produce a bunch of stuff that is either the wrong stuff or stuff that is not really in line with what the company needs, and now you're stuck with them. That usually doesn't happen if you make that initial investment and create a very solid, sociable team with a healthy office culture to start off with. Because once you have that, you can add as many engines as you want. And engines are a lot easier to find than finding those hybrid people who have the skills to do the job, but also those very strong social skills at the same time. So what I want you to take away from this is that if I have to pick between a candidate who is sociable and a candidate who's just raw coding. It very much depends on what I'm looking for. If I already have a team of people who are fairly sociable and have like a good, healthy environment, then I will go with the skilled one usually, because well, it also of course depends on the person, right? And as I said, if I'm hiring in-house people, it's usually I try to lean towards the sociable thing, unless I have a mismatch where like I have too many philosophers or people who are like super sociable, and I actually need people who can produce. If I'm hiring consultants or things like that, I usually favor engine types of things, and then I try to focus on making sure that they get work that is suited to the investment that they have made into the company. In other words, I don't put a consultant at the management level. That's just ignorant. But I put them on work where it's safe to outsource that work, and then I make damn sure that I have a process in place where knowledge sharing is built in by default, so that I don't create a dependency on that consultant if I lose that person. Have a great day.